All right, let's jump right in, shall we? Welcome, everybody, to another deep dive. This time we're tackling something really crucial these days: how to make sense of all the information thrown at us constantly.
Absolutely. It's like drinking from a fire hose out there sometimes.
Exactly. And it's not just about surviving the flood, it's about thriving in the information age. We need to become masters of our information destinies, right? So we're breaking it down into three key skills for you today. We're talking media literacy, digital literacy, and AI literacy.
We've got a lot to cover, some really fascinating stuff too.
Oh, yeah, get this. We'll even be looking at how real world propaganda, I mean, straight out of 1984 stuff, has shaped history, and the modern day danger of deepfakes. Whoa.
It's going to be a wild ride, so buckle up.
So let's start with media literacy, the art of not getting played, basically.
Exactly. It's about dissecting those media messages we see everywhere, recognizing those sneaky biases, and figuring out, what's a real agenda behind those headlines we read.
It's about taking control of what you consume, right?
Yeah,
Not letting it control you.
totally. You become an active participant in that whole flow of information rather than just absorbing whatever comes your way.
It's like in that classic novel 1984, where the party literally rewrites history,
To manipulate people, yeah.
control their perceptions, their whole reality. But that's not just fiction, is it?
Oh, it's disturbingly real. Think about Nazi Germany or the Soviet Union. Those regimes used propaganda, just like in 1984.
No kidding. Tell me more about that. How did that actually play out in those regimes?
Well, the Nazi regime, they used this very specific kind of propaganda to demonize Jewish people and other minorities too, blaming them for, well, for all of Germany's problems.
Wow.
They used everything, newspapers, radio, films, even children's books, to spread their hateful messages. It's really chilling.
It's chilling to think about how they systematically twisted the narrative, controlled a whole nation, really.
And tragically, it worked. That kind of manipulation, it led to just horrific views becoming widespread, ultimately, contributing to the Holocaust.
It's a powerful example of how dangerous propaganda can be, and the consequences when it goes unchecked. So how does this connect to today's world, though? Is this kind of manipulation still happening?
Oh, absolutely. Think about fake news and how social media algorithms can be manipulated. Misinformation spreads like wildfire these days.
Yeah, the 2016 U.S. election, right? Prime example of online misinformation campaigns swaying public opinion and, influencing elections.
Exactly. And these campaigns, they often use tactics designed to, like, bypass our rational filters.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, they play on our emotions, exploit our biases and fears. They want to make us more likely to, accept and share information that already confirms our beliefs, even if it's totally false.
So how can media literacy help us avoid being manipulated like that?
It gives you the tools to question everything you see and hear. Who created this message? What's their agenda? What are they leaving out, maybe? What techniques are they using? By asking yourself those questions, you start to see how things work.
So it's not about being cynical and distrusting everything.
No, not at all. It's more like developing healthy skepticism,
Oh.
learning to spot the red flags.
It's about becoming an active, engaged, critical consumer of information. Sounds like the key to surviving this crazy media landscape.
Exactly. And that's what media literacy is all about.
So we've talked about navigating the messages themselves, but what about navigating the digital world where those messages live? That's where digital literacy comes in, right?
Right. It's not enough to just understand the messages themselves. You got to know how to navigate the digital world where they live.
And that world can feel kind of complex. It's constantly changing, new platforms popping up all the time. Where do we even begin?
Well, I think it starts with understanding the basics. How does the internet actually work? How's your data being collected, used? What are the potential risks?
Yeah, the risks. We hear about creating strong passwords, recognizing those phishing scams. It's easy to just tune it out, you
Yeah.
know? Can you give me an example of where digital literacy would really make a difference in real life?
Okay, imagine you're scrolling through social media, right? You see an ad for a crazy good deal on something you've been wanting. It's from a brand you recognize, so it seems legit. Someone with strong digital literacy skills is going to stop and ask some questions before clicking that link.
Like what? What kind of questions?
Things like, what's the source of this ad? Is this even the real website? Could it be a scam?
So they'd check the URL, make sure it's the official site, look for reviews, maybe.
Exactly. They'd watch out for red flags, like typos or weird grammar. That simple pause, that questioning, could save them from a phishing scam or even a malware attack.
Makes sense. It's about being proactive, thinking critically about every single thing we do online.
And it's not just about avoiding scams either. Digital literacy also means using technology effectively, responsibly. Like understanding how those search engines work so you can find what you need without pulling your hair out.
So you're not just a passive consumer, you're a savvy user.
Right. And it's about managing that digital footprint too, what you post online.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can have real-world consequences, so think before you share.
Especially for young people, right? Their digital lives are basically inseparable from their real lives these days.
Absolutely. Digital literacy needs to be part of education from the start. It's not just about knowing how to use the latest app, it's about thinking critically, being aware of the ethics of the whole digital world.
Okay, so we've covered media literacy, decoding the messages, and digital literacy, navigating that digital world itself. Now let's throw in AI literacy. AI is everywhere. It's like it's taking over the world.
It's definitely changing the world,
Yeah.
and it's only going to become more integrated into our lives in the future.
So what is AI literacy exactly? Why is it so important?
AI literacy is understanding how AI works, what it can and can't do, how it can impact our lives. It's being able to look at AI-generated information critically and make good decisions about interacting with AI systems.
I think some people are intimidated by AI. It seems too complex to understand.
Well, the technology behind it can be pretty complex, but the basic concepts aren't that hard to grasp. And it's so important that we demystify it, empower people to engage with it in a meaningful way.
So where do we start? What are some key things we need to understand about AI?
One of the big ones is that AI isn't like some magical force. It's a tool that humans created. It's only as good as the data it's trained on and the algorithms we give it.
So don't be afraid of it, but understand its potential and its limitations too.
Exactly. And recognize that AI can be biased, just like people can. We need to be aware of those biases and think critically about the information it gives us.
Can you give me an example of AI bias in the real world?
Think about facial recognition software. If it's mainly trained on images of white faces, it might not be as good at recognizing people of color.
That's a really good point. If we're not careful, AI could amplify the biases we already have in society.
And that's why AI literacy is so crucial. It gives us the knowledge and the critical thinking skills to identify and deal with those biases,
Yeah.
and to make sure AI is developed and used ethically for everyone's benefit.
So AI literacy, it's about understanding AI's power and making sure we use it responsibly, ethically too. It's not about, fearing the robot uprising.
Right. It's about being informed citizens in this AI-driven world we live in now. We need to be aware of the risks, the challenges, sure, but also the incredible opportunities that AI brings.
Speaking of risks, those deep fakes we talked about earlier, they're getting so real. It's scary how hard it's becoming to tell what's real and what's fake online.
Deepfakes, yeah, they're a perfect example of how AI can be used to manipulate people, deceive them. With AI, it's possible now to create these incredibly convincing fake videos, audio recordings too, people saying and doing things they never did.
Like something straight out of sci-fi movie, really. Imagine the misinformation, the propaganda you could spread with that.
And think about the impact on trust. Trust in institutions, even trust in each other. If you can't be sure if a video or audio is real, it really shakes things up.
So how do we fight back against that? Can AI literacy help us navigate this whole world of deep fakes and synthetic media?
Oh, absolutely. By understanding how those deepfakes are made, we become more critical consumers of online content. We can learn to look for those little signs that maybe a video's been manipulated.
Are there tools being developed to help us, detect deepfakes?
Yes, definitely. Researchers are working on some pretty sophisticated detection tech. But it's a constant arms race. As the tech behind deepfakes evolves, so do the methods for spotting them.
Sounds like staying informed, up to date, is more important than ever.
It really is. AI literacy is a lifelong learning process. Stay curious, stay engaged, stay informed about what's happening with AI and how it's impacting our lives.
So we've covered a lot today. Media literacy, digital literacy, and now AI literacy. Clearly, these are must-have skills for anyone trying to make sense of this crazy information age we live in. What's the one thing you really want our listeners to take away from this?
I think the biggest takeaway is that we're not powerless. By developing these literacies, we take control, we make better decisions, and we can shape a future where tech is used for good, not for, bad stuff.
It's like we're all on this quest to level up our information game.
Exactly. And it's a quest worth taking on, becoming more informed, more engaged, more responsible citizens in this world that's changing so fast because of technology.
I love that. To all our listeners out there, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning. We're all in this together, figuring out this whole information age thing. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.